Welcome to Torment of Numenera. We are in the bloom. What's the bloom? I will tell you right in a second. Here at the Memovira's Courtyard, we have been fighting the Sorrow already. Or not really fighting, because the Sorrow deals... how much damage was that? I think 300,000. And we make 2 damage. So, no, it wasn't a fight, it was an escape mission. And we did escape. And we saved some of our other cast-offs on the way. And we have fled from... what's that place? Mila West. Let's look into the codex, because stuff has been happening. We have fled from Mila West, which is this, a refuge from the Sorrow, a hidden sanctuary for cast-offs alone, created by the Changing Guard and the first cast-off. Shields cast by generators from a long-dead world, hide it from prying eyes. The only law in Mila West is peace, and in its verdant air, cast-offs can focus on ways to stop the Sorrow forever. What is the Sorrow, you ask? I'm glad you do ask that, and it's... The Sorrow is an ancient horror that hunts the Changing Guard and all his creations, namely the cast-offs. That's us, or we are one of the cast-offs. When you woke deep in the labyrinth of your mind, you felt the Sorrow's inexorable pressure as you rebuilt your memories. When you emerged into the calm and spoke to the Spectre, which we now know is the Changing Guard, the Sorrow ripped its way into your mind and spilled its fragments into your psyche. We are the last cast-off, the newest cast-off that the Changing Guard built just for him, and he wants to, with not our help but our body and our abilities, he wants to finally stop the Sorrow. And in order to do that, he has to kill all of the other cast-offs. He has to use them as nuclear weapons against the Sorrow. And of course I don't know, do we want that? Do we want to die for the Changing Guard, who seems like very much of a dick? Yeah, the Changing Guard is... well, he's a dick. It doesn't say it here, but he's a dick. And now, where are we? We are in the Bloom, which is part of Sargus Cliffs, where we started our whole adventure. Sargus Cliffs is one of the oldest human cities in Greater Garavia, built upon the ruins of more ancient metropolises, and occupies the headland overlooking Garavia Sound, with switchbacks and cutouts in the bluffs, creating broad avenues that wind down to the harbors. Humanity has filled the old streets with their own ramshackle constructions, building wherever they can find a place to stake their claim. Strange towers and remnants of lost worlds pock the city here and there, and old machines still hum in the artificial caverns beneath the city. It is in these caverns that you see the city's true geological strata, the detritus of forgotten times. Some neighborhoods close to the cliff's edges are in danger of falling into the bay below. Every year, the city loses a little ground and a few more lives. Once the heart of the Sargus Protectorate, the city's fortunes have slipped, its territory shrinking to a small pocket of land surrounding the city. And the Bloom is part of that city. And it's an amoeboid leviathan, the size of a city, hauling itself through a gorge near Sargus Cliffs, inch by inch, trying to reach the sea. Its tendrils anchor to the valley's walls, but they also reach through time and dimensions. Where it anchors its tendrils, portals open to far-off places, and explorers who dwell within the Great Devourer rush to take advantage of the distant worlds and dimensions it unlocks. Greetings and salutations, Heldrick! This is where we are today. We are in the Bloom. The Bloom lives, the Bloom wants to eat, the Bloom has maws with which it eats and through which we can step into other dimensions. And here we are. Anything else? There's lots and lots and lots of stuff in this codex, and I will not read it out now. Maybe before I will read everything one last time, when we are standing before the end boss of the game. Has the Bloom music? It does, and it actually has my favorite track of the whole soundtrack. This right here, I think, is what you hear right now is not what I mean, but I think we might step into the soundtrack location anytime. The quest we have to do here in the Bloom. Do we have failed quests? No. Or do we? Nah, no matter. I've arrived in the Bloom, seeking the first cast-off. Dracogen, a self-proclaimed information broker, suggested that I speak to the Memovira who rules the Bloom. If the first cast-off is truly alive and hiding here, the Memovira would know. Unfortunately, meeting the Memovira face-to-face is out of the question without a proper introduction. Dracogen would be happy to provide this introduction if I procure an item called the Magmatic Amulet for him. Dracogen... or bands who make music, a Bloom man... Actually, there might be something similar in here, if I recall correctly. And Dracogen told me to follow the caravan route from the Memovira's Courtyard to the trade post. And that's where I'll find a maw that will take me to the Ascension. And the Ascension, they say, is the place where we can find this magmatic amulet. So, an eye for an eye, mano a mano. No, that's incorrect. Erritis, you want to say something?
Oh, it's you. Can I ask you something?
Of course you can. If you didn't know better, you'd think he looked thoughtful. He rubbed the side of his face, then the corners of his sleep-bruised eyes. I've been pondering some things for over an hour about what happened back there in Mila West. All those people with stories so like your own, and now so many of them have just stopped. And I barely knew them at all. How... He pauses, toying with his doublet and staring at the sky. His glow pulses, growing brighter and brighter until it is hard to look at him directly. How are they supposed to be part of my story if they're dead? It's not really about you, Erritis, it's about me. Do you want to make a choice? Heldrick. Of course, the person in me would say the first one, but you can make a choice, and that counts for everybody who's watching this stream today and all the other days, every Tuesday. Of course, if nobody makes a choice, I will. And I think it's time to do that. Oh, I know. I didn't think they appeared the moment I arrived. It must have been hard for them, you know? Waiting for me to get there, knowing that things would be so boring until I did. Then he slapped his forehead. We weren't talking about me. What? You weren't talking about me, we were talking about your family. Ah, okay. Then I'll do background noise. Shh. Okay, and das ist auf repeat. I don't know what he meant by the last sentence. There, he begins, then winces. The glow around him is glowing brighter than it ever has before. He doesn't appear to notice, however. Their stories are over now, aren't they? I mean, unless they come back at some dramatic moment, more powerful than they were before. I love doing that. But assuming that doesn't happen, what does it mean? Their stories matter to them, I think. But what do they matter now? The golden light of his aura and his casual words can't quite hide the glimmering beads of sweat rolling down his cheeks. Okay, one or three, I mean. We escaped and they didn't. It's up to us to determine whether their lives and deaths matter. I like to think they live on in our memories, if nowhere else. The stories of theirs that we know are part of something larger now. What does one life matter? That's the theme of Torment. They live on in our memories. Yeah, I'm kitschy like that. Yes, he says wistfully. A larger story. I've always lived life to the next adventure, but now I'm wondering where it will end. What will it be like? What will happen after?
I thought the inside of my mouth was strange. For this place, it's like being inside my mouth. Well, it's inside another mouth.
What's strange about the inside of your mouth? All mouths are strange. Fleshy bits flapping and squishing behind exposed bones. Although my mouth doesn't have anyone walking around in it. In comparison to this place, anything's normal. Thank you. My mouth no longer makes me nervous. I do have questions about you still. I'm not surprised. I'm incredibly interesting. What do you want to know? Do you remember talking with me inside my head? Erritis blinks at you several times. That is the strangest question I have been asked by someone else in the last 2 minutes. No. I think I'd remember being in your head. It seems like you'd have a nice one. You're sure? No, I don't. I wish I did, though. You seem to be under the impression that this journey of ours is all about you. You say that like it's not, Erritis says, peering at you suspiciously. Are you serious? Always? I'm on a quest to find quests. I thought you knew that. He bites his lip furiously. I'm still looking for the right quest, but I'll know it when I see it. It's the one that will lead me to the destiny that I think I'd see in my dreams if I ever managed to sleep again. Rubbing his eyes with his hands, he says, it's just so exhausting. I want the treasure and the glory and the heroic stuff, but when I have it, it's never enough. I'm always looking for the next quest. It's just never enough. He cradles his head. Maybe you should be helping people rather than treasure. I like that, Erritis says quietly. Tiny currents rippling through his glow, through him. I like that more than I can say. Something else. All things between us. You don't even need to ask, he says, his eyes glisten with the barest hint of tears. I think we were twins if we didn't have different parents. Not for now. Tybir.
I knew.
Oh yeah, he got the ring of his beloved Auvigne from the gangster that I told you of at the beginning of of Dracogen. Dracogen had the ring of Tybir's friend and boyfriend and love of his life, maybe, Auvigne, and Auvigne, and the ring. Well, you have to watch the past stream to see. It was complicated. He paces over a small patch of ground as though caged. I knew he was here and that he was looking for me. I should have He trails off and pulls the ring Dracogen gave him from his pocket. He cradles it in his palm and meets your eyes. Heartbeat. They work by skin contact, see? I'd know if he was. He bites his lip and closes his fingers over the ring. We have to find him. I have to find him. Can't you sense his mind? See where he is? Right. You don't know what you're asking. Back in the good days, it'd be like holding hands. Wrapping your fingers around theirs, right? But with their thoughts and feelings instead of flesh and bone. I'd need to concentrate for one, and two, I'm not welcome here there anymore. He made that clear, and I don't know that I disagree. We'll find him. Thank you. I just want to talk to him. Set a few things straight, or right, if that's still possible. He swallows and slips the ring onto his fingers. Where do you think he is?
Updated my journal.
He's... Tybir begins touching the ring on his hand and closing his eyes. His brow wrinkles in discomfort, confusion. He's somewhere in Little Nilyesh. Little Nilyesh, okay. And now? He's still in Little Nilyesh. Little Nilyesh. Okay. What happened between you and Auvigne anyway? This isn't the time, Tybir says, but he glances up at you regardless. It was mutual, alright? As time wore on, we wanted different things, and I wasn't willing to... Leave it. Let's just focus on finding him. Anything? Not important now. Let's focus on finding him. How you holding up? I'm fine, lad. I just hope you won't regret our friendship when the time comes to part ways. Let me ask you about the bloom. Well, I lived here for a time, though not recently. The bloom's no place for pleasure. Ask your questions and I'll do my best. Tell me what you know about Dracogen. Not enough, Tybir says, looking uncomfortable. He isn't the first man to use that name, and I've heard stories that he can be in more than one place at the same time. He hisses air out of the side of his mouth. He pays well, but you don't want to cross him. Ever. You just don't. What do you know about the Memovira? Not much, and I like it that way. Now, if you want to know what happens to people who cross her, just listen for the screaming. What do you think of the bloom? If I'm being charitable? He looks around. Everything's got the right at a chance to live. But this beast hates people. Hates the people living in it. He shivers. There's a fortune to be made in here if you know what you're doing. Yeah, but only the hardest operators last long down here, and the bloom never misses a meal. Questions about something else. Let's talk about you. More about your time with Auvigne. Again, nothing new. Okay. Yes, he gave him an order that Tybir didn't like. Right, okay. Elegant, what about you? He purses his lips but says nothing. How are you holding up? I'm fine. Appreciate you asking. Anything about your story? Nothing new. Okay. Okay. This is the muscular orifice that first expelled you into the bloom. It quivers and clenches in agitation. These shanties are constructed entirely of tanned bloom flesh, with a framework of harvested bone and gristle. Odd-looking symbols flicker across these screens. They appear to be communication devices, but they only respond to Dracogen's touch. Dracogen, let me talk to you. Dracogen's flat eyes rove quickly across you, measuring and studying in a glance. He smiles warmly, but his eyes remain hard. You return, and more quickly than I had anticipated. Do you have something for me, perhaps? Perhaps I can do something for you? Can anyone help Erritis?
I'll remember that.
Demons. It is not a question. He stares at you for a moment. No, I know nothing about demons. Perhaps one of the doctors in Qianne's slump will be able to assist you. Other questions? Tell me more about yourself. He spreads his hands apologetically. I have a great deal to say about that subject. Most of it is interesting only to me. What is it you wish to know? What do you do for a living? I am an investor. What is my business? I see you ask with your eyes, and so I answer for you. I deal in strange and exotic Numenera. The bloom is a crossroads, a fruitful place, and I see much of interest. My particular clientele demands items of an interesting nature, and they pay me well for it. Well enough that I can afford to pay my finders generously and remain solvent. How long have you been here? Quite some time, as ordinary humans measure it. I have made the bloom my base of operations for a good 100 years. I have learned to avoid the political squabbles of its residents, for the political turns personal all too quickly. Personal and bloody. The ghosts of the past are always with us, and the bloom more so. Time changes us all. Justice comes on its own feet. It is best to let events take their own course and to steer clear of entanglements one cannot control. So, not for your whole life. By no means. I've traveled from the Clock of Carla to the Steadfast and seen the towering crystal skyfields. I have journeyed to the Forge of the Night Sky, dodging fire whites and spills of magma. I stood upon metal moons to look down upon the earth and saw signs of life in the stars nearby. I have traversed time and space, bending light around the nebula bell and seen myself transmuted briefly into pure thought. The bloom is but a small stop. Speak of something else. What you doing here? I am looking for a useful and interesting Numenera, my friend. The bloom is a crossroads of worlds, a place of power and pain, and a great many people from a great many places pass through here every day. I find explorers, merchants, and other travelers who wish to bring back more for the collection, and I pay well. Again. How long? What do you do for a living? Who are your clients? Bad question. Tybir groans. Do you want to die, friend? You don't ask Dracogen prying questions? Dracogen shakes his head, the smile gone from his face. They are private individuals, with no desire for their identities to be made public. They are collectors. That is all I will tell you. That is all I dare tell you. Let me ask you about something else. Inquisitive minds are the sharpest minds. You mentioned knowing about Mila Vest before. What else do you know about Castos and the Changing Guard? You asked to plunder a great deal of knowledge, but I suppose you will discover these things sooner rather than later, and it would behoove me to have you think well of me. Again, the shark-like smile. But we should make your questions come one at a time. What do you know about Mila Vest? And as I have only heard stories, I know that it was a place of refuge, a sanctuary. I once sought it out. Its name means Stone of Wonders, in an ancient, largely forgotten tongue, and I thought perhaps to acquire the stone. I did not find it, naturally, but the search allowed me to make the acquaintance of a number of your brethren. This proved fruitful on several occasions. Stone of Wonders. Mil Avest. What can you tell me about the other cast-offs? I have had the pleasure of knowing quite a few. Some were excellent business partners and sources of information. Met Qianne, especially, for she knew the bloom and the city above. Inifer hid from his acolytes in the bloom, but found no peace here. I have met with the Chalcedon and Dracogen as they sought advantage for their armies. Your kind are drawn here frequently, though they rarely stay long. What can you tell me of the Changing Guard? Your sire is brilliant, but he is dishonest and untrustworthy. I dealt with him while he was in the body of one of your ill-fated brethren. He carried the amulet then, and he vowed that I should have it for my troubles when he had no further need for it. Instead, he locked it away in the Ascension, beyond my reach, and then he vanished. I would have taken my vengeance, but I discovered that the body that returned to me was not in the mind that had left. It was through this interaction that I came to know more about your kind, but the fact remains that the Changing Guard is a scoundrel and a cheat. A man who breaks his word as easily as breathing. Something else. Talk about some of the people of the bloom. I do not frequently indulge in gossip, but I see no harm in answering your questions. Let's talk about the Memovira. My old compatriot. I have told you what I wish to tell you. She is a hard woman in a hard position. She rose to her rank in the time-honored tradition of the bloom with bloody knife in hand. She rules in much the same way. Having seen some of the more legitimate governments of the world, her way simply seems more honest. What about this area? Why do you remain here in particular? I remain here because a great number of things and people emerge from this particular entrance into the bloom. I am equipped to deal with them, my friend, and to help with their needs, for I have traveled far and know much of the world. If they prove hostile, I am equipped for that too. Perhaps you will see what I mean someday. What can you tell me about the other people in this chamber? His voice lowers conspiratorially. You heard none of this from me, of course. Let me summarize. Near the well, you'll find Skydi, a small-time merchant. She seems different of late, though why I cannot say. In the fighting ring near her, you will see an aeons-old killing construct. Waits for prey. Avoid it unless you wish to die. His gaze shifts. Near the great door to the fortress, you'll see Brusca, the Memovira's hand and fist. A particular friend of mine, though not particularly friendly to others, just as she wants it. Then the slaver Parson Flint, who claims to abide by the rules. True, of course, if you have the shins. Of the others, my heart rests with Qianne. Is that the proper term? No? No, I empathize with her. She is here through no fault of her own, a victim of chance, a kind spirit and likely a dead one soon. Something else. Something else? Okay, farewell. Until next time, friend.
Let's do it.
What are you doing here, Danny? I will get you. I will hunt you down. You butt wipes. Ah! Okay, what did they do to you, Qianne? Some assholes were kicking her. This tent is made from scavenged canvas and flimsy wooden poles. It smells faintly of sweat.
Job done right.
Someone built this simple structure from a motley assortment of planks and timber. The wood is rotting in the damp air of the bloom.
I'm ready.
A tent to lay your head, food and tales from afar included. Alright, Qianne. A woman, barefoot and in rags, stands defensively beside her tent. Despite her obvious poverty, she crosses her arms and holds her chin high. And what do you want? Who were those people who ran off? She points her chin in the direction of the tunnel that leads out of the courtyard. They're called Delny and Vrang. They've been squeezing money out of me for months. Protection, they call it, though obviously they only mean from them. I wish I could do more than simply cave to their demands, but as you can see, I'm not exactly equipped to defend myself. It's all I can do to survive. How often do they steal from you? Too often. I barely have enough to feed myself, and then they take what's left. Usually more than what's left. Why not call the guards? Guards? You mean the Memovira's thugs? All they do is guard her interests and extort money from the gangs. They don't keep order, unless you can't pay them. That's the way of the bloom. Delny and Vrang can do as they like, as far as anyone else is concerned. Maybe I can help.
I'll remember that.
Where did they go? They crawl out of a hole somewhere deeper in the bloom. Little Nilyesh, I think it's called. I'm not the sort to wish violence upon anyone, even people like them. But I hope something happens to stop them. Will you tell me again about them? I think they're from Little Nilyesh, but I've never gone there. It's a slum full of mutants and the residents don't like normal humans. I'm afraid that's all I know. Look at her closely. You notice immediately that her rags are actually made of a high-quality fabric. It appears that they were once a fine green dress or gown, though it is now filthy and torn. She catches you looking and straightens her posture, seeming almost regal for a moment. Tell me about yourself, Qianne. She gives a weak smile and curtsy. My name is Qianne, the Bloom's most pitiable storyteller and self-styled innkeeper, though I admit that inn is far too fine a word for my little tent. Still, I can provide a meal, a bedroll, and at least a modicum of entertainment in the form of tales from my homeland. Before I came here, I was a noblewoman, believe it or not, a courtier from Stirthal. She gets a faraway look in her eyes. It feels like a previous life. I wonder if I'll ever find my way back. I suspect not. How did you get here? You've seen the Qianne, I assume? She gestures broadly at the massive broken vehicle behind her. That one. Being slowly subsumed by bloom flesh. It's a kind of magical carriage, capable of traveling great distances by skipping over the space in between. Governor Mera's ex-priests determined that it came through Stirthal on a very precise schedule and would appear at one of a few locations near Stirthal every 73 hours. Well, among the nobles it became sort of adventure. We would dare one another to board the Qianne or even hold parties at a location where it was scheduled to appear. It was exciting. I knew people who went on such journeys and came back with the most wonderful tales. They'd spend a couple of days meeting strange, fascinating people and visiting wild locales. Some, I'm fairly certain, were not even in the Ninth World. I had to see for myself. So, about a year ago, my friends and I threw a Qianne gala in anticipation of its arrival. We packed and dressed for adventure, and when the carriage arrived, we boarded immediately. She clasps her hand in front of her and sighs. Sadly, that was the Qianne's final journey. It crashed here, tunneling through part of the bloom. Most of the passengers were killed in the crash, and the rest in the months since. I am all that's left of that voyage. You are very strong to have survived for so long. I never considered myself strong. If I was truly strong, I might have kept the others alive too. But thank you. Where's Sturthor? Hundreds of kilometers from here. From what I've learned, as I understand it, the bloom is located in what we in Sturthor called the Beyond. Actually beyond the Beyond, as I had never heard of the Sargus Protectorate or any of the places people talk about here. Sturthor is one of the largest cities in the Steadfast. It perches on the edge of an enormous rift in the ground called Voil Chasm. Some streets and buildings even protrude from the cliffsides, not unlike your Sargus cliffs, as I understand it. It's a cultural jewel in an otherwise war-torn nation. Okay. And the nation of Malavik, or Malavich, Veniveki. There, well, brightness, no, it's alright. That's okay. Yeah. Let's stick to it. I'm looking like an angel with my white dress, but that's okay. Yeah, you're my angel. Okay. Then, farewell. Farewell, sir.
All right.
Is that? Bedraggled slaves look up at you through a net of energy that is stretched over the pit. A serial offender. She's a rapist, a cannibal, a murderer of children, and... oh, someone worthwhile at last. I'll buy her outright for 900. 900? Why don't you let the rest of us have a shot first? Did you plan to offer more, fat man? No. Too rich for us, I'll wager. Do I hear any more bids? No. Sold to this fine lady for 900 shillings. Rin. Rin is here. Does anyone care to bid on a financier? Pass. What if I told you that he lured his clients to his vault, tortured them, and fed the pieces to a machine? Did he? So the authorities tell me. I hadn't followed this case, so I'll offer 300, but I'll want a refund if he's worthless. You know I offer no refunds, madam. Have we a bargain? Very well, sold. Okay. Slave auction, always nice. What's happening outside in the city? Who runs the council now? I was a great man in Sagas once, but that's gone now. All gone. 5 years in this place and no word from my wife. No word from my children. I haven't seen the night sky in... must be years.
Why, of course.
Bloom Dweller. Do you have to be so loud? You're angry and devouring. Another centimeter and we'll be in this sound in no time. What? Ah, so tasty. Serve you, master. Mistress? Lord, your dark wine nourishes me. Ha ha ha, don't buzz so. I don't know. You're hungry, Lord. Hungry. I walk without fear tonight. Walk. No, I fear. I fear for the Memovira. Don't eat me. You. Can't you hear it? On another level, all sound is vibration, all energy vibrating against itself. Do you have to be so loud? You're... oh. Ah, okay, I see. Ah, in the sound, in the Garavia sound. Okay, he's talking to the bloom.
Of course.
I understand now. Oi, down there, slaves! How about a nice warm shower? Let me finish my water and I'll get it right to you. Asshole. We're here to guard the merchandise. It's on the Memovira seal. Don't get any clever ideas. Okay, I won't.
Coming.
Ooh, this is my favorite soundtrack. Doo-doo. My family needs me, but the guards won't let me through the gate. I need to get home.
Yes.
The metal gates are firmly shut. They are blemished with age, but still strong. Coruscating rings of blazing energy hover vertically just inches from the fortress wall, offering no clue as to their true function.
Coming.
Okay. Memovira thug. These gates are shut for a reason. No visitors let. Then let's talk to Brusca. This woman's face is lined with worry, though her thick build suggests that she could snap a spear in two without much effort. She continually glances toward the tunnel leading out of the courtyard, as though she hopes to see somebody. She runs a hand through her short, graying hair and mutters, "Gods." Finally, she takes notice of you. The wrinkles on her face harden immediately. "What are you looking at?" She juts a thumb toward the massive gate behind her. "Nobody gets in the fortress without permission. I can already tell you don't have it, so keep walking." You look worried. What's wrong? She gives you a wry grin. It's that obvious. You'd be worried too if you had 2 patrols go missing and you were stuck on guard duty.
Making a note.
Listen, if you happen to see my missing soldiers, I'd appreciate whatever news you can give me. They'll be outfitted like me. She indicates her studded leather armor. I'm looking for them myself, but she gives a kind of surrendered shrug, leaving her thought unfinished. What can you... Where should I start looking for missing patrols? Both of the patrols were tasked with collecting duties from the gangs. They're probably somewhere in the vast interior or one of the slums, but I haven't heard from them in some time. Given the nature of the bloom, they could literally be anywhere. The vast interior. If I need to see the Memovira. She places a casual hand on the hilt of a large blade. Nobody sees the Memovira, not unless you get permission from someone who matters. I will not lie to her. You don't understand? No, that's this. You don't understand. I need to see the Memovira is such a movie quote from so many movies. And I always think, why would this convince anybody? You don't understand, I need to. I mean, you don't understand almost sounds like they were insulting the other party, so why would they do anything for them? If I find your missing people, will you let me inside? She gives you a pitying look. I don't decide who gets in. I just keep everyone else out. But if you find my man, I'll give you something for your trouble. What can you tell me about the Memovira? She's someone you don't want to cross. Like me. What can you tell me about yourself? Ah, right. I've heard about you from folks in the cliffs. I guess I can't get away from you without answering some questions, can I? I've been in the Memovira service for years. Ever since she first came into power. She's not one to mess with, let me tell you. She'll squash anyone in her way just to keep things tidy. She gets a faraway look in her eyes. At least that's how it used to be. Things are different now. The Bloom's acting strange, and even some of the gangs are getting out of control. Never crossed the Memovira, but these days it seems like there are plenty of others you shouldn't cross either. The Bloom is acting strangely? It used to be that the Bloom sort of favored us because we worked for the Memovira. She seemed to predict things it would do or new maws that would open, but now it's dangerous for us to go too deep, else the Bloom itself might swallow some of us whole. That's if we can't find our way in the first place. With the maws closing and shifting like they are, it's a wonder my patrols ever get back to the fortress at all. It's like it hates us. It's becoming more aggressive all the time, shifting maws underneath us sometimes or just closing off the way home entirely. The gangs are out of control. Can you tell me something about them? Too many to tell, but I can list a few you're likely to find nearby. There's the Murdens, down where the old slave block used to be. We've tried to run them out a few times, but there always seem to be more. Can't figure out why the bloom doesn't bother them. There's the mutants in Little Nilyesh. Let me point out that they named the place like they are trying to make a new Nilyesh right here, with them as the rulers. They didn't used to give us trouble, but they've gotten bolder since the bloom started acting up. I'm not sure which is worse at this point. And then there's Artaglio and his bunch. They stay mostly in the slump. They're not so much a gang as they are a bunch of freeloaders, but they cause enough trouble with the other gangs that they are worth mentioning. Well, farewell.
Happy to help.
Merchant. This is my first time buying a bloom slave. Exciting, eh? Enough chit-chat. Who will give me 420 for this blight on society? 425.
450.
475. 480. 500. You can have it. Do I hear 520? No, sold for 500. Okay. Flint has something special in the pens today. I can see it in his eyes. You're an explorer. Good for you. I'm a buyer and you're distracting me. Flint is a man who enjoys his work. Oh, we're smiling that one. Flint is... Oh, yeah. Could learn some XTrevi synth parts, but the damn Mars shot on me. Need to get it open in a hurry. They say there is a second ocean in the depths of the earth. I seek a Maw to take me there. I was a bloom slave once. Better to be on this side of the auction, let me tell you.